I've spent a lot of years learning that the most damage a person can do to you isn't done with a fist. It's done with a sentence. One sentence in front of the right people at exactly the wrong moment. That's all it takes to undo years of work. 4 years in my case. 4 years of showing up, proving myself, earning my place. My wife Diane blew all of it up in about 8 seconds flat. It was a Sunday in July. Mesa, Arizona, the kind of heat where the air itself feels hostile. 110 degrees before noon and climbing. I'd been at her parents' house since 8:30 in the morning, helping set up for their annual summer barbecue. Lloyd and Connie Hargrove had been doing this cookout every July for as long as anyone could remember, and I'd been part of it for 4 years running. 4 years of showing up early, staying late, carrying ice bags, dragging folding tables out of the garage, and generally doing whatever needed doing without being asked. That morning, I'd brought Connie's favorite pasta salad, made from scratch the night before. Her own recipe that she'd shared with me 2 summers ago because she said I was the only one who actually listened when she explained things. I wore the button-down shirt Lloyd had given me for my birthday back in April. Navy blue, nice fabric. I'd even run my truck through the car wash on the way over, which sounds like a small thing, but with Lloyd it wasn't. He noticed everything. By 2 in the afternoon, I genuinely thought I'd made it. Not just that day. I'd finally actually made it. Lloyd's other son-in-law, Gary, was out in the yard, tossing a football with the kids. Connie was laughing at something her sister said. Lloyd and I were standing at the grill talking about a drainage problem he'd been having with the backyard slope, and he was asking my opinion like it mattered. Like I was someone whose opinion was worth asking. I felt it. That thing you chase when you marry into a family. That feeling of belonging. Then Connie asked the question. She was smiling, relaxed, looking between me and Diane with that warm expression she had when she was genuinely happy. So when are you two going to give us some grandchildren? Gary and Melissa's kids need cousins to grow up with. I saw Diane go stiff beside me. We'd been having a version of this conversation privately for going on 2 years. I wanted kids. She kept moving the goalposts. When she made senior analyst. When we had more saved. When we found a bigger place. There was always something sitting between us and actually starting a family, and I'd been patient about it because that's what you do when you love someone. I started to say something diplomatic about how we were working on timing, the kind of non-answer that gets you through a family gathering without starting anything. Diane cut me off. Not with this one, she said, and she laughed. And she gestured at me with her wine glass like I was a prop in her joke. Maybe when I find someone with a little more ambition. The backyard went silent the way a room goes silent when something genuinely bad happens. Not polite silence. Not the pause between songs. The silence of people who just witnessed something they can't unhear and don't know what to do with. Lloyd's hand stopped halfway to setting his beer on the rail. Connie's smile didn't fade. It just stopped existing, replaced by something I'd never seen on her face before. Gary, across the yard, looked at his wife. Even the kids in the pool seemed suddenly louder by contrast, the way background noise always gets louder when the foreground goes quiet. I felt it in my chest. Not anger, not right away. Something colder than that. Something that felt like recognition. 4 years. 4 years of arriving early and staying late. 4 years of remembering what books Connie mentioned wanting to read. 4 years of sitting through dinner parties with Diane's colleagues who talked to me the way you talk to someone who wandered into the wrong room. 4 years of measuring twice and cutting once on Lloyd's deck project. 4 years of trying, genuinely trying, to be the kind of man who deserved a place at this table. And in 8 seconds, Diane told everyone at that table what she actually thought. I set my beer down on the rail. Lloyd had handed it to me an hour earlier, one of those craft IPAs he kept in the garage fridge for special occasions. I set it down carefully, like it mattered. Then I wiped my hands on my jeans, looked directly at Lloyd and Connie, and kept my voice as level as I could manage. "You're right," I said. "Someone else will give you those grandchildren." I turned and walked through the back door into the house, through the kitchen where I'd helped Connie set up the food that morning, past the hallway with the family photos, including the one from our wedding where everybody looked genuinely happy. Through the front door, where I grabbed my keys from the bowl on the entryway table. The ceramic bowl I'd given Lloyd and Connie for Christmas 2 years ago, which they'd apparently liked enough to actually use. I heard footsteps on the driveway before I reached my truck. Brandon, Lloyd's voice. Hey, wait. I turned around. He was standing there in the sun with his hand out like he wasn't sure what to do with it. And he looked, I don't know how else to say it, genuinely distressed. Not embarrassed at the party, distressed. Actually upset. This man had been more of a father to me over the past 4 years than my own father had been in the decade before that. And I felt that, standing there in his driveway. I felt it, and I kept going anyway. I'm not your son anymore, I said, but I respect you too much to make a scene at your house. Tell Diane her things will be on the porch. Through the front window, I could see Connie. She had her hand on Diane's arm and her face had gone white. Diane was watching me through the glass with an expression I couldn't quite read from that distance. Annoyed, maybe. Confused. Like she was waiting for me to stop overreacting so we could all get back to the party. I backed out of the driveway slow and careful, the way I always did, because old habits don't break just because your life is falling apart. In my rearview mirror, I watched Lloyd standing with his hands on his hips, and I watched Diane come out the front door with her phone already in her hand. And then I turned the corner and drove away from 4 years of Sunday dinners and holiday traditions and patient effort. I felt calm. That's the thing I remember most about that drive. I felt completely calm. Diane got home to our apartment in South Scottsdale about 45 minutes later. Second floor unit, pool view we'd used exactly twice in 2 years. I was already pulling my things out of the closet when I heard her heels on the stairs. She came in still wearing the sundress from the barbecue, and she was already talking before the door was fully open. That was incredibly dramatic, she said. You do realize you just embarrassed me in front of my entire family. You walked out of a family barbecue like a teenager having a tantrum. I kept folding clothes into my bag. You embarrassed me, I said. I just left. It was a joke, Brandon. God, can you not take a joke? I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. Really looked at her. Which part was the joke? The not with this one part? Or the someone with more ambition part? Walk me through the punchline. You're being so sensitive? Everyone knew I was kidding. Your mother's face went white. My mother overreacts to everything. People's faces go white when they hear something they know isn't a joke. That's not overreacting. That's recognition. She made a sound of frustration. Fine, I'm sorry you can't take a joke. I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt. Can we move past this now? You're sorry I can't take a joke, I repeated slowly. That's your apology. What do you want me to say? I want you to say you meant it, because you did. I zipped the duffel bag. I can handle your sense of humor, Diane. What I can't handle is being humiliated in front of people I've spent 4 years trying to earn respect from. That wasn't a joke. That was the truth wearing a punchline. She saw the bag. Her voice changed. Where are you going? My brother's place. I'll be back Tuesday for the rest of my things. You're leaving over one comment. I'm leaving because you meant it. You said it out loud today, but you've been thinking it for a while. I'd rather know than not know. I picked up the bag and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't yell. Didn't give her a dramatic exit speech. Just left, the way you leave when you're done. My brother Dale lived in Gilbert with his wife Karen and their 2 boys, Tyler and Marcus. 15 and 17, good kids. When I showed up at his door that night with a duffel bag, Dale took one look at me and went to the fridge. Guest room's yours, he said, handing me a beer. You want to talk or you want to watch the game? Talk, I said, but maybe both. Karen came in from the kitchen and looked at me with the kind of expression that meant she already knew something had happened and wanted the full story. Karen had never been Diane's biggest fan, not because she disliked her exactly, but because she had good instincts about people. And she'd been watching Diane for 4 years, the way you watch weather you're not sure about. What happened? She asked. I told them. Word for word. The question about grandchildren. Diane's answer, the wine glass, the silence. Karen's jaw dropped. She said that in front of her parents. In front of everyone. Lloyd, Connie, Gary, the kids. What did Lloyd do? Dale asked. He chased me down the driveway, calling me son. I told him I wasn't his son anymore. Karen shook her head slowly. That woman. She says it was a joke. The hell it was, Karen said. She looked at Dale. That wasn't a joke. No, Dale agreed. It wasn't. The next morning, my phone had 47 texts from Diane. I counted. I'm not proud of counting, but I counted. They went in stages. Angry first, then defensive, then pleading. Then a pivot to her father wanting to talk to me, which told me more than any of the texts did. If Lloyd wanted to talk, it meant Diane was running out of moves. I sent one reply. I have nothing to say right now. Tuesday afternoon, I went back to the apartment with Dale. Diane was at work. I took what was mine and left what wasn't. The wedding photos stayed in their frames on the wall. The furniture we'd bought together stayed. The toolbox I took. The Craftsman 270 piece, set Lloyd had given me for Christmas, with an inscription inside the lid that read, "To my son-in-law, for building your future." That inscription stung to read. But I'd earned that toolbox. Every piece of it. Wednesday evening, Lloyd left me a voicemail. Brandon, it's Lloyd. Listen, I don't really know what to say except that I'm sorry. What Amanda said, what Diane said, there's no excuse for it. Connie is furious with her. I thought of you as family. I still do. Please call me back when you're ready. I saved it. Didn't call back. Not yet. Thursday, I canceled the Cabo trip. We'd been planning it since April. A week in Mexico in August, me and Diane and Lloyd and Connie and Gary and Melissa. The reservation was in my name. I'd put down $1,200. I got $800 back. I didn't tell Diane I'd canceled it. She found out when Connie mentioned being excited about the trip, and Diane had to explain that there was no trip anymore. She texted me, "You canceled Cabo? That was for the whole family." I texted back, "I'm not family, remember?" She didn't reply. Over lunch that day, Dale set down his sandwich and looked at me. "Are you actually divorcing her?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but I know I'm not going back to being her punchline." She called Karen 3 times asking if you're okay. What did Karen tell her? That you seemed fine. I am fine. Better than I've been in a while, honestly. Dale studied me. You do seem different. Lighter, somehow. I feel lighter. That's the weird part. I feel like I put down something heavy. 3 weeks after the barbecue, I sat down with a divorce attorney. Thomas Garrett, downtown office, 50s. The kind of guy who'd heard every version of the story and wasn't going to waste your time pretending to be shocked. He laid out the situation without drama. 4-year marriage, Arizona community property, no children, rental apartment, joint checking with about $8,000 in it, separate retirement accounts, individual car loans. If you're certain about divorce, file first. It sets the procedural tone. I'm not certain yet, I told him, but I'm certain about respect. Then make moves that show you're serious. Separate your finances. Establish independent residency. Document everything. The consultation was $350. Full representation would run $5,000 if I went forward. I paid for the consultation and took the paperwork home. That Wednesday, I opened a personal checking account at a different bank. Transferred exactly half of the joint account, $4,200, and left the rest. I put in the memo line. Finances separated as of July 22nd. Remaining balance is yours. Then I updated my direct deposit. The joint account stayed open but stopped growing. Thursday evening, Connie showed up at Dale's house. Karen let her in but stayed in the living room. Protective. I appreciated that. Connie sat on the edge of the couch and held the glass of water Karen had given her without drinking it. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "I need to apologize to you," she said. "Connie, you didn't let me finish." She said it firmly, not unkindly. "You didn't do anything wrong. I raised her." Somewhere along the way, she learned it was acceptable to treat the people she claims to love like that. And that's on me more than it's on her. I failed as a mother. That's not fair to yourself. What she said was cruel. It was disrespectful to you, to our family, to the idea of marriage itself. Lloyd and I have been married 36 years. We've had hard times, real hard times. And I have never once publicly humiliated him. Not once. Because you don't do that to someone you love. You just don't. I appreciate you saying that. I'm not saying it for your appreciation. I'm saying it because it's true and because you deserve to hear it. She finally set down the water glass. You've been nothing but respectful and kind to our family since day one. You show up. You remember things. You brought me that book on behavioral economics because I mentioned it once at dinner, and you'd actually gone and found it. I wanted you to like me. We do like you. We love you. Which is why watching you walk away broke my heart. But I understood it completely. She paused. Can I ask you something honestly? Sure. Did you ever think I didn't think you were good enough for her? I looked at her. Honestly? Sometimes. Yeah. She took a long breath. In the beginning, I worried she was settling the wrong direction. She has her master's degree. You didn't finish college. She was making 90-something thousand. You were making 50-something. On paper, I had concerns. I'm not proud of that, but it's true. And now? Now I know that paper doesn't show character. It doesn't show who picks up the phone when something breaks. It doesn't show who remembers what someone mentioned wanting to read. It doesn't show who treats a woman with consistent, unglamorous, daily respect. She met my eyes. I'm ashamed I ever judged you on a salary. You're the first person to offer help and the last person to leave. That matters more than a degree. Thank you for being honest. Will you give her another chance? I don't know yet. Connie left me her personal cell number. Said to use it if I needed anything. The following Friday, I took off my wedding ring. I put it in a small envelope with a handwritten note. Until you can treat me with respect in public, I won't wear the symbol of our marriage. I mailed it to Diane. After I sent it, I kept catching myself reaching for my left hand, touching the tan line where the ring had been. It's a strange feeling, that absence. Like a phantom limb, except what you're missing is something you chose to remove. Week 4, Diane started showing up at Dale's house. First time I wasn't home. Dale didn't let her in. Second time was a Thursday evening. I'd just gotten back from work, still had sawdust on my shirt from a side project I'd been doing in Dale's garage. She was standing in the driveway in her work clothes, and she looked not bad exactly, just rigid, like she'd rehearsed something and was determined to deliver it. You sent back your ring, she said. I did. What does that mean exactly? It means what the note said. This is insane. One comment and you've dismantled our entire marriage. One comment in front of your entire family. One comment that told everyone what you actually think of me. I've apologized. I've sent you 100 texts. You've said you're sorry I took it the wrong way. That's not an apology. That's blame with an apology stapled to the front of it. She made a frustrated sound. Then what do you want? Just tell me what you want. I want you to understand that respect isn't optional. I want you to understand that I'm not your backup plan while you wait for someone who checks more boxes. I'm not a placeholder. I didn't mean it like that. Then explain it to me. What was the joke? Walk me through why it was funny. Silence. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Couldn't get there. That's what I thought, I said. You're not perfect either, she said, and I could hear the defensiveness kicking in, the pivot to offense that people make when they know they're losing ground. You work constantly. You're always exhausted. You never want to go out with my friends. You're right. I'm not perfect. I kept my voice level. But I have never once made you feel like you weren't good enough. I have never put you down in front of people you care about. I've never made you the punchline. So yeah, I work too much, and I'm tired, and I'd rather stay home than go to a happy hour with people who've never learned my last name. But I've never done what you did. Not once. She went quiet. So what happens now? She finally asked. I don't know. But I know I'm not coming back until something fundamental changes. And I don't mean you apologizing better. I mean something actually changing. She left without a good answer, which was itself an answer. 5 weeks in, I went to the apartment management office and asked to get off the lease. 3 months remaining. The manager was sympathetic but clear about it. Both parties had to agree or someone paid the buyout. $2,400. I paid it. Filed the paperwork. My name came off the lease effective end of the month. I didn't tell Diane yet. That Wednesday, Robert texted me. Lloyd, I'd started thinking of him as Robert in my head. I don't know why. Maybe because it felt more honest about where things stood now. He texted, "Can we meet? Just us two. Coffee." I agreed. Copper Star Coffee on Central Avenue, 8 in the morning. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees in front of him, which I thought was a decent gesture. He stood when he saw me, and we shook hands, and there was something slightly formal about it that hadn't been there before, which felt right. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Of course. I owe you an apology, not just for what Diane said, for my own part in it." He wrapped his hands around his cup. I should have said something the moment those words came out of her mouth. I should have stood up right then. "You chased me down the driveway. After you'd already left. That doesn't count." He shook his head. "A man sees something wrong happening at his own table, and he stays quiet. That's not neutrality. That's complicity. I know that. What would you have said if you'd spoken up right then?" He thought about it. "I would have told her she was wrong, that you're a good man, that she was lucky." He paused. "I believe all of that. You didn't always." "No, I didn't always." He looked at me straight. "When Diane first brought you home, I had real doubts. You seemed young, undirected. She had her degree, her trajectory. You were... I didn't know what you were yet. I'll be honest about that. I appreciate it. But then I watched you. 4 years of watching you." He leaned forward a little. "You know when I actually knew? That weekend we built the deck. Remember how that turned into 2 weeks?" I remember. That Saturday night after you'd gone home, Connie said to me, "That man measures twice and cuts once. He asks questions and he actually listens to the answers." She was right. You cared about doing it right, not just getting it done. That's rarer than people think. He sat back. "I told Connie that weekend that you were going to be fine, more than fine, and I meant it. I enjoyed that project. I know you did. That's the thing." He was quiet for a moment. "Are you filing for divorce?" "I've met with a lawyer. Haven't filed yet. What's holding you back?" I thought about it honestly. 4 years of history. The fact that I did love her. Maybe still do in some form, I don't know. Love isn't always enough. No, it's not. What would it take to try again? A real understanding of what she did. Not an apology because she got caught and it backfired. Actual change. The kind that shows up in behavior, not in texts. He nodded slowly. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope and set it on the table between us. "Take this," he said. I looked at it. "Lloyd, I know what you're going to say. I can't take your money." "You're not taking it? I'm giving it to you. Because whatever happens with Diane, you're still my son. You earned that. She didn't take it away from you just because she forgot what it was worth." I looked at the envelope, looked at him. "Let me do this," he said, "please." I took it. $3,000 cash. I didn't take it because I needed it. I was managing fine. I took it because he needed to give it. And some things you do for other people, even when it costs you something. The following Friday, I toured a 1-bedroom apartment in Mesa near Superstition Springs. 3rd floor, mountain view, quiet building. Smaller than what Diane and I had shared, but it was mine. I signed the lease. Move-in date August 1st. Used Lloyd's money for the first month and the deposit. Standing in that empty apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Room. Diane found out about the apartment on a Monday evening. Showed up at Dale's house, got the address from the old lease paperwork somehow, and showed up at my door 2 hours later. I was on the floor putting together a bookshelf from IKEA, which is its own kind of meditation, when the doorbell rang. She walked in without waiting to be invited. Looked around at the half-assembled furniture, the bare walls, the air mattress in the corner. "So this is it," she said. "This is your new life. How did you get this address? Does it matter? I didn't give it to you for a reason." She kept looking around. "You gave up our apartment for this. 1 bedroom, no dining room. It's not our apartment anymore, and yeah, I chose this. This is sad, Brandon. This is genuinely sad. I think you should go." "Why? Because you've moved on? Because you're doing so great?" Her voice had an edge I recognized. Not quite anger, not quite hurt, somewhere in between. You know what I think? I think you're punishing me. I think you're making yourself miserable just to make a point. I'm not punishing you, I'm protecting myself. From what? One comment? From being disrespected. I set down the Allen wrench. From spending the rest of my life wondering when you'll finally find someone with enough ambition and leave. From feeling like a placeholder in my own marriage. She stepped back. Something shifted in her face. I wouldn't have left you, she said. But you thought about it. That's what that comment was. That was you telling everyone you kept your options open. That's not Diane. I looked at her. Do you want to tell me the truth? The actual truth. Not the version where it was a joke? She was quiet for a long moment. Long enough that I thought she was going to leave without answering. Then she said, Fine. Fine? You want the truth. She sat down on the arm of the borrowed couch, and something in her posture changed. The rigidity went out of it. Yes. Sometimes I wonder if I settled. You don't have a degree. You're not moving up any corporate ladder. My friends ask me, they actually ask me to my face, why I'm with someone who works in construction. My colleagues at the firm don't say it directly, but I can see it when they look at you at work events. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, I wonder if they're right. The room was very quiet. There it is, I said. I didn't mean, you did mean it, and now we both know it. I looked at her. You know what? I'm glad you said it. The comment at the barbecue hurt like hell. But this is actually useful. Because now I don't have to wonder. Now I know exactly where I stand. Brandon, you're ashamed of me. Not all the time. Not every day. But sometimes when the people you care about are watching, you're ashamed of who you chose. I kept my voice steady. I spent 4 years trying to earn your family's respect, trying to prove I belonged. And the whole time, you were the one who didn't think I did. Your parents came around. Your brother came around. You didn't. I love you. I know you do. But love isn't enough when it comes wrapped in shame. You can love someone and still be embarrassed by them. You can love someone and still think you married down. Those things aren't mutually exclusive, and I think you know that. She started crying then. Not performed tears, real ones, the kind that don't care about timing. It wasn't about you, she said. It was the pressure. My mom asking about kids every holiday. My dad talking about legacy and trajectory. My friends buying houses and having babies, and I'm in a rental with someone my colleagues don't understand. I didn't mean to make it about you. I cracked. And when you cracked, what came out was the truth. I don't know how to fix this. I know. And I'm not sure it can be fixed. You can't apologize your way back from showing someone who you really are. You showed me that when things get hard, when the pressure's on, I'm the thing you throw overboard to make the boat lighter. I can't build a life with someone who does that. Just tell me what to do. Tell me, and I'll do it. I can't tell you that. That's not how this works. She left crying. I sat on the floor of my half-assembled apartment surrounded by IKEA parts and instruction sheets, and I felt two things at once. Exhausted and relieved. The truth was out. Finally, completely. Irreversibly out. Monday morning, I called Thomas Garrett. I'm ready to file, I said. You're certain? She came to my apartment. She finally told me the truth. She thinks she's settled. She's embarrassed that I don't have a degree. She worries what her colleagues think when they see me. I paused. I'd rather know than spend another 4 years wondering. That's painful to hear. Yeah, but I'd rather have the truth than a comfortable lie. Come in Friday, we'll get the paperwork started. Wednesday evening, Dale came over with a six-pack and sat on the borrowed couch while I put the finishing touches on the bookshelf. You seem different, he said. Different how? Like, sadder but lighter. Both at the same time, it's a weird combination. It's exactly that, I said. I've been carrying this weight for years, trying to be enough, trying to prove something, and now that I've stopped, everything feels different, quieter. You're really filing? Friday. He was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about it? Like I'm doing what I should have done the morning after the barbecue. I tightened the last bolt. Like I'm finally catching up to what I already knew. 9 weeks after the barbecue, Diane was served divorce papers at work. The process server walked into her investment firm downtown on a Tuesday morning. Papers cited irretrievable breakdown, irreconcilable differences, division of debts, no spousal support requested on either side. She called me Tuesday evening. First time I'd answered in weeks. "You actually did it," she said. "I told you I would." "I didn't think you would. I kept thinking you'd—" She stopped. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. That's been part of the problem. You never believed I'd stand up for myself. Is there any chance? Any at all?" "No. You won't even hear me out." "I've heard everything I need to hear, Diane. I heard you at the barbecue. I heard you at my apartment. I heard the truth. That's enough." Thursday, Connie called. "I heard you filed," she said, and yeah. I can't say I'm surprised. I'm heartbroken, but I'm not surprised. She took a breath. My daughter broke something that didn't need to be broken. That's on her. But I want you to know, you will always be family to us. That doesn't go away because a marriage does. That means more than you know. Can I ask you something? Sure. If she changed, really genuinely changed, would you ever consider— I don't know, I said honestly. But it doesn't really matter, because I don't think she can change the thing that needs changing. She'll always wonder at some level if she settled. And I deserve someone who knows they won. There was a long pause. "You do," Connie said quietly. "You absolutely do." I settled into a routine. Work during the week, gym most mornings, Dale's family for dinner on Sundays, and woodworking. I'd started spending evenings in my apartment building things. Small stuff at first, a shelf, a side table, then more ambitious projects. A coffee table from reclaimed wood I found at a salvage yard. Something about working with your hands when everything else feels uncertain, it grounds you. Every piece you make is something real, something you can point to and say, "I made that." That exists because I decided to make it. The 60-day waiting period Arizona requires for divorce passed the way most waiting periods do. Slower than you expect, and then all at once. 3 months after the barbecue, something unexpected happened. Diane started therapy. I only know this because Connie told me, and I only know what happened in therapy because Diane eventually told Connie, and Connie told me because she thought I should know. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't curious. Diane's therapist had her do an exercise. Make 2 lists. The first list, what I actually contributed to the marriage. The second list, what she had valued in a partner before we met. First list, emotional support, reliability, physical help around the house, and with her family. Loyalty, effort, consistency, genuine kindness, love. Second list, status, professional prestige, a certain kind of ambition. What her friends would think, how it looked on paper. When she compared the 2 lists, she told Connie, she sat with them for a long time. Then, she told her therapist, I had something real, and I traded it for something imaginary. I traded a person for an image. She stopped calling me, stopped texting, started showing up at family events alone without the armor she usually wore. Quieter, different. She told Lloyd and Connie, I destroyed the best thing I had because I was embarrassed, because it didn't look impressive enough. And the worst part is, the things I was embarrassed about were the things that actually mattered. Connie told me Lloyd cried a little when she said that. Not a lot, but a little. Diane wrote me a letter. Her therapist suggested it. She didn't send it. She told Connie she wasn't going to send it, that it wasn't about me reading it, it was about her writing it. But Connie told me what was in it because Diane asked her to. It said, you deserved someone who was proud of you, not someone who was measuring you against a standard she got from people who don't matter. I was so busy trying to look like I had it together that I couldn't see what I actually had. You were always more than enough. I just couldn't see past my own ego long enough to notice. Month 4, we had our mediation session. The 60-day mark had passed and the paperwork was moving. The split was straightforward, no shared assets. Beyond the cars we already owned separately, Diane got the apartment until the lease ended. I kept my place. Dissolution scheduled for 2 weeks out. The week before the court date, Lloyd asked me to lunch again. Copper Star, same corner table. I'm not here to plead her case, he said before I could say anything. Good. I'm here because I thought you should know that she's different, not as an argument, just as information. People don't really change, Lloyd. Some don't, but some do. When they lose something they can't get back. He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. She quit her job. I looked up. The firm. The $90,000 position where she was embarrassed to say what her husband did for a living. He said it quietly, without judgment. She took a position at Habitat for Humanity. 30% pay cut. She's out in the field, working with people building homes. I didn't say anything. She told Connie, I spent 4 years with a man who helped people build things. And I was ashamed because he didn't have a title. Now I'm literally helping people build homes. Maybe I'll finally understand what mattered. He looked at me. She's in therapy twice a week. She's not dating. She's working on herself in a way I've never seen her work on anything. I'm glad she's figuring herself out, I said. I mean that. I'm genuinely glad. I know you are. But it doesn't change what happened. I know that too. He nodded. I just wanted you to know. If you ever wondered whether she got it, whether she actually understood what she did. Too late, but she did. We sat there for a minute with our coffees. You know, I said, Dale's been after me to try one of those online matching things. Not dating apps exactly. More like values-based stuff. He found this one called singletune.com that does this deep assessment before you ever see anyone's profile. Questions about what you actually believe in, what you've been through, what you want from your life. Matches you on compatibility, not on photos. Lloyd raised an eyebrow. Huh. I'm not ready for anything like that yet. But I thought it was interesting. The idea that you'd figure out who you are before you start looking for who you want. That's smarter than how most people do it, Lloyd said. Yeah, I thought so too. He drove me back to my building afterward and shook my hand in the parking lot. Held it for a second longer than necessary. Whatever happens, he said, you're still my son. That's not conditional. I nodded. Couldn't quite speak. The court date came on a Wednesday. Maricopa County Courthouse. Both attorneys present. A judge who'd clearly done this 1,000 times and had no particular feelings about doing it 1,001. The process was exactly as cold and procedural as you'd expect. 15 minutes. Judge granted the dissolution. Effective immediately. I was no longer married. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Diane caught up to me before I reached the elevator. My attorney shook his head slightly. I told him 5 minutes and stepped aside with her. She looked different than she had at the barbecue. Less polished. No statement earrings, no power blazer, no careful presentation. Just a woman in a plain blouse who looked like she hadn't been sleeping well. I know it's too late, she said. It is. I just need you to know that I understand now what I did, why it was unforgivable. I'm not saying it to get anything back. I'm saying it because you deserve to hear it. I waited. I spent 4 years with someone who showed up, who helped, who actually cared about people. And I couldn't see it because I was too busy measuring you against some imaginary standard I got from people who don't matter. My colleagues, my friends, people who've never built anything with their hands in their lives. I know. I quit the firm. I'm at Habitat now. I'm out in the field, getting my hands dirty, working with people who are building actual homes. And every single day I think about how you would have loved that work, how you tried to tell me that worth isn't measured in salary and title and what your colleagues think. She looked at me steadily. You were right about all of it. I didn't settle. I had something real and I threw it away because it didn't look impressive enough. That's on me. That's entirely on me. I appreciate you saying that. Is there any universe where she stopped, started again? Someday. Not now, not soon. But is there any world where we could start over? I thought about it honestly. I don't know. But I know I can't be with someone who's ashamed of me, even if they eventually realize they shouldn't have been. That's a wound that doesn't heal easy. She nodded. Understood. I hope you find yourself, I said. I mean that. I hope you find someone who sees what I couldn't. We walked away in opposite directions, and I didn't look back, and it was over. Really over. And I felt peaceful. That's the word. Not happy, not sad. Peaceful. Like something that had been unresolved for a long time had finally resolved itself. And the resolution was quiet and clean and exactly right. Month 6. My new life. The woodworking had expanded from a hobby into something more. I'd built a coffee table, 2 side tables, a set of cutting boards, a small bookshelf. Dale's neighbor saw the bookshelf and offered to pay me for one. I said I'd think about it, and then I built her one, and she paid me $300 for it, which was more than I expected. Then I started selling at the local weekend market. Not as a business, just as a thing I did on Saturday mornings. It was good. It was mine. I still worked my regular job. Still had dinner at Dale's most Sundays. Still texted Lloyd occasionally and had coffee with him and Connie every few weeks. The relationship with Diane's parents had survived the divorce in a way I hadn't entirely expected, and I was grateful for it in a way I didn't always know how to say out loud. I finished building a dining table for Dale's family. Solid oak, hand-planed, mortise, and tenon joinery. The kind of table that will outlast everyone who eats at it. Dale stood in his dining room, looking at it for a long time. Brandon, he said, you made this. Took about 3 weeks. Karen ran her hand along the surface. This is extraordinary. This is a real piece of furniture. Dale's older boy, Tyler, grabbed my arm. Uncle Brandon, will you teach me, actually teach me how to do this? Absolutely, I said, and I meant it. One evening in month 6, I was sitting on my apartment balcony with a beer, looking at the mountain view I'd paid for, and I found myself thinking about the singletune.com thing Dale had mentioned. I'd looked it up once, a few weeks earlier, mostly out of curiosity. The way it worked was that you didn't see anyone's profile until you'd completed this long assessment. Questions about your values, your history, what you'd learned from the hard parts of your life, what you actually wanted going forward. The algorithm matched you on that, not on photos or proximity or whatever filters people usually set. I sat there thinking about it, about the idea of starting from the inside out, about knowing who you are and what you actually need before you start looking for someone to share it with, about how different that was from how most people approached it, from how I'd approached it, if I was honest. I'd been so focused on proving I was enough that I'd never stopped to ask whether what I was building together with Diane was actually what I wanted. The assessment on singletune.com asked things like, what have you been through that changed how you see the world? What do you believe in that you won't compromise on? What does respect look like to you in practice? I thought about those questions for a while. Then I went inside and started writing out answers. Not because I was going to submit them anywhere, just because it felt useful, just because knowing the answer seemed like the right place to start. The following Saturday, I was at the farmer's market with my cutting boards and a small side table I'd made from some reclaimed cedar. I'd set up a simple table, nothing fancy, just the pieces arranged so people could see the grain and the joinery. A woman stopped and looked at the cutting boards for a long time. She had paint on her forearm, and she was carrying a canvas tote that was too full, and she looked like someone who was genuinely interested, not just browsing. Did you make all of these? She asked. Everyone. She picked up one of the cutting boards and turned it over in her hands, looking at the end grain, the way the wood had been finished. This is real craftsmanship. You can feel the difference. Thank you. How long have you been doing this? Seriously, about 6 months. I've been working with my hands my whole life, but this is the first time I've made things just for the sake of making them. She bought the largest cutting board, and we talked for a few minutes about the wood, about where I found the reclaimed cedar, about whether I ever did custom work. She left with the cutting board under her arm, and I watched her go, and I thought, someone just appreciated what I made. Not what I earn, not what degree I have, not what my job title is. What I actually made with my own hands. It's a different feeling than I expected. Better. I've thought a lot about what happened in the months since that barbecue. About the 4 words that changed everything. Not with this one. I've turned them over enough times that they've lost their sting mostly. What they did, what they actually did underneath the hurt, was clarify things. They told me something true that had been sitting in the room with us for years, something I'd been working around without acknowledging. Diane wasn't a villain. She was a person who had confused external markers for actual value, and who hadn't figured that out until it cost her something real. That's a human mistake. It's a painful one to be on the receiving end of, but it's a human mistake. I don't hate her for it, but I also know what I know now. I know that I spent 4 years trying to earn approval from someone who was never going to fully give it. I know that I stayed smaller than I needed to be, quieter than I needed to be, more careful than I needed to be, all in service of proving something to someone who had already made up her mind. I know that the moment she said those words at that barbecue, some part of me recognized the truth in them. Not the truth about my worth, but the truth about where I stood with her. And I know that walking away was the right thing. Not because I'm better than her, not because I won something, but because I finally stopped negotiating my own worth. Connie called me in week 3 of month 6, just to check in. She does that now. I've gotten used to it. "How are you?" she asked. "Good. Really good, actually." "I'm glad. You deserve to be good." A pause. "Amanda? Diane?" She's still at Habitat, still in therapy, still working on herself. I'm glad she's figuring it out. She is, slowly, but she is. Another pause. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." "That day at the barbecue, when you walked away, I knew right then that we'd lost you. But I also knew you were going to land on your feet. Because anyone who has enough self-respect to walk away from disrespect is going to be okay. That's just how it works." "Thank you, Connie. That means a lot. You'll always be part of our family. You know that." "I know." I hosted a barbecue of my own that August. My apartment complex had a small courtyard with a grill, and I put it to use. Dale and Karen and the boys. Lloyd and Connie, a couple of guys from work. Nothing fancy. Burgers, potato salad, beer in a cooler, somebody's playlist on a Bluetooth speaker. We stayed out until 10 o'clock when the temperature finally dropped to something reasonable. And Tyler spent most of the evening asking me questions about the coffee table I'd built. And Lloyd and Dale talked shop about a drainage problem Dale was having in his backyard. And Karen and Connie sat in the folding chairs and laughed about something I couldn't hear from across the courtyard. I stood at the grill and looked at all of it and thought, this is mine. Not the apartment, not the grill, not any individual piece of it. The whole thing. This is mine. I built this. 6 months ago, I was standing in a backyard in Phoenix, thinking I'd finally earned my place at someone else's table. Thinking that if I just kept showing up, kept proving myself, kept being good enough, eventually the approval would come and stay. Then, 4 words cleared all of that away. Not with this one. At the time, it felt like the end of everything. Now I know it was the beginning of the only things that actually mattered. Understanding my own worth, demanding to be treated with respect, building a life that didn't require anyone's permission to exist. I'm not building someone else's future anymore. I'm building mine. One piece at a time. Measured twice, cut once, made to last. And someone else will give Lloyd and Connie those grandchildren. Just not me. That's exactly as it should be.